Welcome to the dark side of strength. Welcome to the place where the fire never dies. Welcome to the place where pain is not your enemy, but your origin. Where scars do not mark defeat, but survival. Welcome to the place where the shadows do not frighten you, but teach you how to move in silence, with precision, with fury. Welcome to the part of you that no one understood, the part they tried to chain, break, bury, silence, drug, restrain. Welcome to the place they were so afraid of. They caged it and called it a problem. But it wasn't a problem. It was a revolution. It was you. They built a prison for you. They built walls around your fire because they feared what would happen if it burned unchecked. They gave you limits because your potential made them tremble. They gave you rules because your mind was too wild, too raw, too true. They created labels to put on your back so the world wouldn't listen to you. They fed you lies from the moment you could speak. They taught you weakness as a virtue, taught you to obey, not to think, not to challenge, not to destroy, not to evolve. They gave you mirrors that reflected their version of you, broken, small, tame, obedient. But you cracked the cage, you broke the frame, you tore through the walls and you took the pieces of your cell and sharpened them into blades. You learned that the prison was never physical. The chains were not metal, the walls were not stone. The cage was belief, fear, guilt, shame, self-doubt, planted by others, watered by society, guarded by the expectations of the blind and the afraid. But you grew claws in the darkness. You turned your silence into war cries, your isolation into armor, your pain into fuel, your rage into direction. And now they don't know what to do with you. They whisper now. They keep their distance. They call you too intense, too cold, too dark, too real. Because now you walk without needing permission. You speak without lowering your voice. You move like a storm, like you've already buried 10 versions of yourself and dared the world to try again and again and again. You turn the prison into a forge. The fire they tried to smother now burns hotter than ever. You're not just free, you're forged, you're weaponized, you're dangerous. And not because you hurt people, but because you see through them. You see their illusions, you smell their fear. You hear the hesitation in their voice when they talk about dreams, like they're impossible. You hear the lies they tell themselves, and you no longer participate in their theater of mediocrity. You're not interested in approval. You're not interested in fitting in. You're not here to be accepted. You're here to be remembered. Do you know what happens when a caged animal realizes the door is unlocked? It doesn't walk out. It explodes. It tears through the bars. It does not thank its captors. It doesn't smile. It doesn't forgive. It emerges wild and vengeful and reborn. And that's you. Now, that's who you've become. You are the nightmare they tried to tame and failed. They underestimated you because you were quiet, because you were kind, because you were loyal, because you bent before you broke. But they never saw the storm behind your eyes. They never noticed the fire. You were feeding in silence. They thought they broke you, but you were just waiting. You were building. And now that you've risen, now that you've cracked the cage, they panic. They retreat. They pray. You don't remember how they laughed when you bled, how they watched when you begged, how they turned away when you screamed, how they shrugged when you drowned. But you remember, and you turned all of it into steel. You wear every betrayal like armor, every scar like ink, every failure like scripture. You have no time for pity, no tolerance for weakness. You respect strength. You respect pain. You respect truth. You are no longer here to be healed. You are here to be weaponized. Every insult they threw at you is etched in your bones. Every night you cried yourself to sleep is a chapter in your legend. Every hand that didn't reach for you is a fire in your lungs. Now you breathe. Wall. Now you speak like prophecy. Now you walk like vengeance. They built a prison for you, but you cracked the cage and you didn't just leave. You took the keys and freed the others. You looked around and saw the world wasn't just unfair. It was rigged, built on systems that feed on submission, addiction, distraction, and you said no. You said never again, and you started to speak, and your voice shook. But it grew, and it grew, and it became thunder, and they heard you, and they hated you, because now they couldn't control you. You don't need applause, you don't need support. You don't need love that comes with chains. You don't need comfort that comes with a leash. You don't need to be liked. You need to be free. And freedom has a cost most people can't pay. But you already paid it in blood, in tears, in years of silence, in years of being misunderstood, in years of biting your tongue, in years of playing small. And now you owe nothing to anyone but the fire inside of you. And if the world tries to build another prison, you'll burn it down before they lay the first brick. You are not afraid of losing. You are not afraid of falling because you've lost and fallen more times than you can count. You've tasted rock bottom and found treasure there. You've been shattered and rebuilt and shattered again. And every time you came back sharper, colder, faster. You cracked the cage, and in doing so, you became something they can't define. There's no name for you anymore, no role, no title, no category. You are everything, and they said you couldn't be everything, and they feared you'd become and more. You're not a survivor. You're not a victim. You are the storm. You are the reckoning. You are the blueprint for what happens when pain is mastered, when fire is guided, when rage is focused. Let them try to put you back in the cage they built. They will find nothing but smoke. You cracked the cage, and when you stepped out, you didn't look back. Because what was behind you wasn't life, it was illusion. It was a blueprint made by cowards, for cowards. It was a script, and you tore it to pieces. You stopped playing their game. You stopped apologizing for existing. Too loudly, too wildly, too truthfully. You let your darkness speak, and it didn't whisper. It roared. It bled out of you like prophecy, and you let it. And now you walk alone. Sometimes. Yes, but not lonely. You walk with purpose, and that is something no one can hand you. It's something you have to pull out of the abyss. With blood in your teeth and ash on your face, you have to earn it by dying to everything they told you you were supposed to be, and now that you have, they can't recognize you anymore. They say you've changed, like it's an insult, like it's a loss, but they never knew you. They only knew the version of you they were comfortable with, the one that said yes, the one that played nice, the one that lowered their gaze, the one that swallowed their truth, the one that waited their turn in a world that never intended to call their name. And now you don't wait. You move, you strike. You didn't just break the cage. You melted it down and made a crown out of the wreckage. You wear your past like armor, not shame. You are not trying to forget. You are not trying to erase you. Carry it all with pride, because it made you. It built your backbone. It gave you teeth and claws and vision. You see the world now as it is, not as they sell it to you, not as they paint it. You see through the mask, through the performance, through the empty praise and fake concern, through the motivational poison. They drip into the masses to keep them numb and soft and afraid. You see the game, and you refuse to play by their rules. You write your own code, and it is brutal and beautiful, because you know nothing worth having comes without pain. Nothing real comes without sacrifice. You don't want easy. You want true. You want raw. You want earned. And you will bleed for it. You will crawl through fire for it, and you will smile while doing it, because this is what freedom feels like. They ask you how you did it, how you changed, how you came back from the dead. And you tell them you didn't come back. You didn't survive. You became something else entirely. You let the old self die. You burned it on purpose. And out of the ashes, something impossible was born. Something they can't quantify. Something they can't stop. You don't fear the darkness anymore. You are the darkness. You don't wait for light. You don't pray for rescue. You became your own savior, your own monster, your own God. And that terrifies them, because it means they have no power over you anymore. No grip, no hook, no leash. You cracked the cage, and now you speak in absolutes. You move with finality. Your yes means yes. Your no means war. Your silence is louder than their noise, because you've seen too much, lived too much, lost too much to play small ever again. You have no time for games, no patience for pretense. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't wait. You either feel the fire or you get out of the way, because you're building something now, something untouchable, something divine, something forged in pain and sharpened in solitude. They see the glow in your eyes now, and it unsettles them, because it's not hope, it's not joy, it's power, ancient and earned and merciless. They feel it when you enter a room. They sense it in your voice, that unshakable depth, that certainty that you will never again betray yourself for anyone, for anything. They tried to make you quiet, and instead they made you unignorable. They tried to tame you, and instead made you sovereign. They tried to shame you, and instead made you holy. They tried to erase you, and instead made you eternal. You cracked the cage, and that was the beginning of the end for everything that once held power over you. Fear, guilt, shame, comfort, validation, weakness. You spat them out like poison. You cleansed yourself with pain. You purified your soul through discipline. You shed your skin and grew new armor. Now when you speak, it cuts. Now, when you move, it shifts the ground. Now, when you look someone in the eye, they either rise with you or run from you, because there is no middle ground with fire. There is no compromise with storms. You are not here to negotiate with your limits. You are here to break them. You're not here to conform. You are here to transform. You're not here to heal the world. You are here to burn down everything false and leave only the truth standing. They built a prison for you, but you turned it into a weapon. And now the question is not, will you use it, but how far you're willing to go, how deep you're willing to cut, how much you're willing to sacrifice. Because the truth is, the fire doesn't sleep now, and neither do you. You walk with ghosts now, with the versions of yourself that died, so you could be here. With the dreams you buried, with the tears you swallowed, with the nights you screamed into a pillow, while the world kept spinning like it didn't care, because it didn't. And that's the point. It never cared. It was never meant to. And that's why you stopped waiting for it to understand and started building your own reality from the ashes, from the bones, from the silence. You cracked the cage, and now there's no turning back. You're too awake, too aware, too lethal, and they feel it. The world feels it, and they will try to pacify you, distract you, seduce you back into comfort, back into safety. But comfort is a lie, and safety is an illusion, and you know it. So you keep going, you keep building, you keep hunting. because you are no longer the one who begs. You are the one who chooses, and your standards are carved in stone. Now, let them call you cold. Let them call you obsessed. Let them call you too much. They are not meant to understand you. They were meant to doubt you, so you could rise beyond them. They built that prison for you because they feared what they could never control, because they saw in you the spark of chaos, the promise of rebellion, the force that could burn down their carefully constructed kingdoms. But what they didn't know was that every lock they placed on you, every chain they fastened, every barrier they raised was just fuel for your fire. Every attempt to cage your spirit only taught you how to fly in darkness. You didn't just survive their prison, you weaponized it. You took every insult, every betrayal, every cruel word, every moment you were told you weren't enough, and you forged it into something sharp, something unforgiving, something unstoppable. You are a living testament to the fact that prisons are not made to hold you, but to test you. And when you pass that test, you become the nightmare of those who built the walls. You walk through hell barefoot with nothing but your will as your shield. You stared into the abyss, and the abyss flinched because it didn't expect you to be so relentless, so raw, so unbreakable. You found strength in places no one taught you to look, in shadows, in silence, in the space between breath and heartbeat. And that strength isn't pretty, it isn't polite, it isn't convenient. It's savage and real, and it's yours. This world is made for the timid, for the obedient, for those who follow the script. But you ripped the script into flames. You burned it because you saw the lies between the lines, the rules written to keep you small, to keep you quiet, to keep you from rising. And now you stand tall above the ruins of those lies, a monument to the power of refusal, the power of rage, the power of unapologetic existence. You cracked the cage, and now there is a new language that lives inside you, a language forged from battle scars and sleepless nights, a language that doesn't require explanation because it's written in fire and blood and defiance, and every step you take echoes with the footsteps of the ones who couldn't make it this far, the ones who whispered your name in the dark and prayed you would be stronger than them, and you are. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but you are proof that it doesn't just make you stronger. It makes you dangerous. It makes you unpredictable. It makes you the storm they never saw coming, because they thought your quietness was weakness, but it was patience. It was calculation. It was gathering energy for the moment when you would rise and burn everything down. You are the architect of your own freedom, the commander of your own war. You didn't wait for permission. You didn't ask for blessing. You took what was yours with bloodshot eyes and trembling hands. And when you cracked that cage, it wasn't just your liberation. It was a declaration that nothing will ever cage you again. You have stared into the void and learned to love the emptiness, because in that emptiness there is truth. There is clarity, there is raw power that no one else has, because no one else dared to walk alone into that darkness and come back, unshaken, unbent, unbroken. And now that you have come back, you do not apologize for your fire, your intensity, your refusal to conform, your refusal to be silent, your refusal to dim your light for anyone, because you know that light is what keeps you alive, what scares them, what makes you immortal. Let them call you dangerous, because you are. You are a weapon born from pain, a force born from resistance, a soul born from the ashes of every prison. They tried to lock you in, and every day you wake up knowing you are not here to be tamed or broken again, but to rule your own kingdom, even if that kingdom is built from rubble. The cage was never real. The cage was a story. They told themselves to sleep at night. The cage was a lie, wrapped in fear, wrapped in control. But you cracked the cage and you exposed the lie, and now you walk the world with the kind of freedom that terrifies the weak and inspires the lost. You are the rebellion. You are the revolution. You are the reckoning. The world tried to bury you, but they forgot that seeds grow in the darkest places and fire rises from the deepest wounds, and you are both seed and fire. You are both growth and destruction, and nothing will ever stop you because you are unbreakable, because you are unshakable, because you are unstoppable. You cracked the cage, and in doing so, you cracked the very foundation of everything that was supposed to hold you down. And that is your power. That is your legacy. That is your war cry to the world and to yourself. That no matter what comes, you will always rise, because freedom is not given. It is taken. It is earned. It is fought for with everything you have. And now you carry that weapon everywhere you go. It is in your voice, in your gaze, in the way you move through the world with purpose and fire, and there is no turning back. Because once you've tasted that kind of freedom, once you've turned the prison into a weapon, you become something more than human. You become legend. So wear your scars like medals, your silence like thunder, your pain like power, and know that every time you feel weak, every time you want to give in, every time you doubt yourself, you are walking through your prison once again. But this time, you are the guard and the key and the fire and the weapon, all in one. They built a prison for you, but you cracked the cage and turned it into the deadliest weapon imaginable. The weapon of a soul that refused to be caged, refused to be silenced, refused to be small. And that weapon is you, and you are unstoppable. You have lived through the unthinkable. You have stared into the void and refused to blink. You have been locked down, silenced, dismissed, and labeled unworthy. But every attempt to cage you was a chance for you to discover the true depth of your strength. And now that cage is nothing but ashes beneath your feet. You cracked the cage, and in that breaking, you didn't just find freedom. You found power. The kind of power that runs deeper than flesh and bone. The kind that lives in the marrow, in the fire, in the unyielding pulse of your heart. The power born from suffering, transformed into purpose refined in the darkest nights and forged in the sharpest pain. They thought the prison would destroy you, but what it did instead was birth a weapon that doesn't just defend, but conquers, a weapon that doesn't just survive, but dominates, a weapon crafted from every betrayal, every moment of loneliness, every tear that fell in silence. This weapon is you, your mind, your will, your spirit, sharpened beyond what they could imagine. You are no longer their victim, no longer their project, no longer their shadow. You are the flame that consumes the lies, the rage that shatters the chains, the storm that rewrites the rules, and the truth that cannot be caged. So walk forward, knowing you have transcended their design. You have stepped beyond the limits they tried to impose, and you are now a force of nature. Not because you want to be, but because you have no other choice. You have seen too much, felt too deeply, and carried too much to ever return to the way things were. And if the world tries to build another prison, if it tries to lock you again, if it tries to silence your fire, you will not crumble. You will not hesitate. You will not negotiate, because you have learned the most sacred truth. The cage exists only where you allow it to exist, but you cracked it open, and now you carry the key in your veins and the fire in your soul. This is your legacy. This is your war cry. This is the truth you must live by. The prison they built for you was never meant to hold a warrior. It was meant to contain a whisper, but you turned that whisper into a roar. You turned those walls into weapons. You turned every ounce of pain into a force that will echo for generations to come. So stand tall, wear your scars, proudly wield your pain as a sword, and let the world know that they can build 1,000 prisons, but none will ever hold the weapon you have become. Because you cracked the cage, and now you are freedom itself, incarnate, and nothing in this world or the next can ever take that away from you.